What's up, everybody? Brett Okamoto from ESPN, and it is that time of the week. Of course, it's UFC Best Bets, joined by my good friends James Krause, veteran MMA fighter, veteran MMA coach over there in Kansas City, and then Nick Kalikas of the Circa Sportsbook here in Las Vegas. We are talking about UFC Fight Night this Saturday at the Apex, Cody Garbrandt versus Rob Font. Before we do that, we got to look back at, unfortunately, one of our first losing weeks. And I feel like months, especially for James. James, I think you were going for a 10-fight win streak here on your best bets. Came up short on Michael Chandler. He almost got it done in the first round. Hey, you can't.
Hey, all good things come to an end, man.
All good things come to an end. And the good news is you just start a new streak right away. That's.
But
good,
unit for unit, I'm still up big.
Of course. A nine best bet win streak is pretty darn good. And then Nick, you were actually on Michael Chandler as well. We were close, boys. He was very, very close to finishing that fight in the first round, but Charles Oliveira, you got to give it to him. And what a great scene. Jumps out, 28th fight in the UFC, wins the title. Can't be too unhappy about it. But he did cost us our losing streak here on the show.
I'll say this, though. I will say this. I do think just because I lost that bet, even knowing now what I know, I would still place that bet again if they were to fight again.
Sure. And you probably get better odds the next time around. I think Chandler would be a little bit more of a bigger underdog. So maybe we will revisit that someday, as Chandler has said he's going to hold that belt within 12 months. We'll see if he's correct. But we got a different fight card to talk about this week as Cody Garbrandt, as I mentioned, facing Rob Font Saturday at the Apex. Right now, what I'm seeing, I just checked it this morning, William Hill, Rob Font -115, Cody Garbrandt -105. So actually, Rob Font now the favorite, which I'll start with you, Nick. I don't believe. Was that the case early on, or did Cody Garbrandt open the favorite?
With me, he did open the favorite, but I think market-wide that was not the case. Garbrandt did open -115. Let me double check the odds here as a favorite. So it's basically a pick 'em fight with Garbrandt opening the favorite in some places, Font opening this favorite in some places as well. So it's one of those true pick 'em type of fights where, some books had Font open, some books had Garbrandt open the favorite. So it's a pick 'em type of fight for sure. Even right now across the market, I'm seeing, a pick 'em -110 odds all over the place. At Circa, we have Font -120, Garbrandt even money. So basically a true pick 'em.
So very close, obviously, and I'm going to get to James here with the matchup. But Nick, what do you attribute that to? When you look at this line and sort of how it's bouncing back and forth, and you got Cody, who's a former champion, but he's also had that 3-fight losing streak where he was knocked out in every single one of them. So kind of how do you look at the way the market is treating Cody Garbrandt right now?
Well, of course, there's going to be a lot of respect. He's got an amazing amount of knockout power. We've seen it time and time again. The guy he touches you, you go to sleep sometimes, right? And again, former champion, and he's put on some masterclass performances. So that level of respect is going to be there for sure. And I think a lot of people are just waiting for him to get back to the top of the pedestal, so to speak. But on the other side of it, Font's been fighting really well. I think he's finally kind of hit his stride. He's got some knockout power. He's a tremendous striker. So this should be a striker versus striker matchup, right? And the fact is, Font has been more durable. The durability of Font, I think, is what is keeping this type of fight a pick-em fight, because obviously the knockout power with Garbrandt is a little bit more intense, if that makes sense. But Font has it on the other side, and he's more durable. So I think that's why everybody realizes that this fight could realistically go either way. These guys could finish each other.
James, do you agree that it's a stand-up fight? And if you do, break down the stand-up that we're going to see in this fight.
Yeah, absolutely. I do agree. I think it's going to be primarily a boxing match. And both these boys are, man, they probably have some of the best boxing in the entire division. And maybe you can even argue some of the best boxing in the world, in MMA, But stylistically, Nick kind of hammered this home a little bit, but to me, the couple things that stand out is on Garbrandt's end, you have not just the power, but more specifically, he has the power because of his hand speed. His hand speed is absolutely incredible. Probably the fastest hands in the division. And because of that, he has great knockout power, not because he's fast, but he also has power with his hand speed. So that's a deadly combo. My con with Garbrandt is he's a little hittable at times. And if you can get him emotional in fights, he doesn't seem to make good decisions in terms of staying rangy. He wants to trade. And just with a guy like Rob Font or any guy that has a little bit of power, that's typically not a good idea. And I like Font, and Nick used the term durability. For me, it's a little bit more defensive prowess, right? I don't even necessarily say that Garbrandt is chinny, or he's not chinny. I don't think he is, but he's just a little hittable at times. You know what I mean? And when you have that power, in those divisions. I mean, look who's knocked him out. You know, these guys are some of the cream of the crop of strikers in that division. So it's not like he's not getting busted up by just nobodies. I mean, he's getting beat by TJ, and then he got Munoz knocked him out as well. And both those guys have crazy power, right? So when I look at Font, the biggest thing that stands out to me against Font that I think is going to give Cody the biggest issues is that jab. Man, Rob Font's jab, he has probably the most underrated jab in that division, maybe in the UFC, maybe in all of MMA. His jab is absolutely incredible. If you guys remember, he actually dropped Marlon Moraes with a jab, and he just busts you up with that jab and then seems to find that right hand with it. So it's a very intriguing matchup. Both these guys, you know, bring pros and cons to the table, but to me, they're very, very similar. I like Rob Font's defensive prowess a little bit more, and I like him sticking behind that jab. But Garbrandt's hand speed is absolutely incredible, mixed with his power. It's a very, very interesting matchup.
It's interesting the way you described that, James, because when I talked to both of them yesterday. Talked to Rob first, and talked to him about potentially getting Cody emotional. And he said, you know, I'm not going to try and do it by saying anything to him, but I think my jab will frustrate him and he'll become emotional. And then I told Cody that, and Cody's like, fine, he can throw the jab at me. Would you rather have a jab, or would you rather have the fastest right hand in the division? And I thought both of them made good points there between that two. Nick, let me ask you something, because James made a good point. He said that he doesn't think that Cody is chinny. Now, if you go on social media, you'll see a lot of different, you know, avatars out there, fans who don't put their real names, who say that Cody has a glass jaw, of course, you know, which is common in this sport. But what do you think about his ability to take a punch, someone who sets lines, you know, and the fact that he does get in these firefights? Cody told me that he was just so different back then. He was fighting, he was emotional, and that he had lost a little bit of the passion in the sport. And now he's with Mark Henry. Moving forward, as you set lines on Cody Garbrandt, how much are you looking at his ability to take a punch? And also, how does that play in with the total that you have up at Circa?
It's huge. I mean, honestly, James could be exactly right. I think that the defensive issue is part of him getting knocked out for sure. But at the same time, I mean, our visual and what we've seen in him being knocked out the way it is, I think sticks in a lot of his bettors' minds. And it does stick in my mind every time I open a fight for sure with Garbrandt, because I know what kind of talent he has. He's a special fighter. But when you see him kind of lose the way he does, I mean, it kind of gets cemented in your brain. And I think a lot of the bettors out there have it like that as well. So I think we have to see him put together maybe a string of 3 or 4 fights that he's in kind of some firefights and his defense is a little bit better and he survives it before he gets over that hump. And you're absolutely right about the total. Every one of his fights are going to be kind of leaning towards the under because of that. I mean, because he can either knock you out, or on the other side of it, if you can't take it as well, then that's an issue too. So the totals are always shaded towards the under when Garbrandt fights. There's no question about it.
I got a line specific question here. So the line that I saw on William Hill was over under was set at 2.5, with the under slightly juiced to -120. This is a 5-round fight. So they're saying they're setting the line right at 1/2. If this was a 3-round fight, would the line still be 2.5, and would it be different? Like how much does that affect like how long a fight is supposed to last?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you could use 1.5 here, laying juice on the over. So it's really up to the sports book. And a lot of times what you'll see in a case like this is the juice is a little bit less, meaning that the under's under 2.5, -225 or -125, I should say here. So it's 2.5 rounds under -125. Now we could use 1.5 rounds over maybe -170. -160, but that's not as an attractive price to look at as a bettor. So if you could use a smaller juice, if that makes sense, then you'd rather use 2.5 rounds, because that's more of a bettable line, rather laying -125 or taking 0.5 on the other side, instead of laying that -170 or +150 on the other side. Of course, if you're going to take the under, then you want to see that plus money for sure. But I think as far as attractiveness goes at the betting window or on the apps or whatnot that these bettors are logging into, I think the smaller the line is, the more likely they are to bet it. So I think that's why you're seeing a 2.5 price instead of 1.5 rounds. So it could go either way, really. And I don't think it's going to matter too much if it's 3 or 5, because the total is the total. You know, this is what it's expected to go either way.
James, real quick, and then we'll wrap up on this main event. Do you have an opinion on the total? And also, if this goes later, 4th round, 5th round, who do you think it has the advantage?
That's a really good question. My initial gut is the under 2.5. That's my initial thought, because both these guys are sluggers and they typically don't go to decision, either one of them. And Font's kind of, they're very similar. They're almost the same guy. You know what I mean? Like they're almost the same guy. I feel like we're just talking about Font a little bit differently in terms of he's better defensively or he has a better chin. However you want to put that label on that. We're essentially saying the same thing. He can take a punch a little bit better, whether it's defense because of defense or his chin or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
I initially want to say the over though, I'm sorry, the under. I initially want to say the under because both these guys are usually finishing by knockout, and I'm not sure if it favors either one of them, to be honest. Neither one of them have cardio issues. And if it goes over 2.5 rounds, I got to think that you pass a point of like, there's typically a point in a fight where it's like, I'm not going to get this guy out of here. I better settle in. And it kind of turns into a hard sparring match, if that makes sense. And I got to think if they get into round 3, I got to, you know what I mean? I got to think that they're kind of both at that point. But man, with both of these dudes, I don't think those rules always apply. You know what I mean? Like both these guys are trying to knock your head off. Yeah. Yeah, and they do. Anybody else, there's usually a moment where it's like, okay, I'm not gonna get this guy out of here early. Let me settle in a little bit. These guys are throwing fastballs 25 minutes through. And if you watched Garbrandt versus Dom Cruz, he was dropping him in round 4. He was throwing fastballs then too. And if you watch Font, he's done similar stuff. I don't think Font has ever gone 5 rounds. I could be wrong on that.
I don't believe so.
But his cardio has never been an issue. I can't imagine cardio being an issue for either one of these guys. So if you ask me who this favors going into the championship rounds, I'm going to say neither. I'm indifferent on it. I don't think it's a big factor at all. Cardio has never been a problem for either one of these boys. Both of them have power. I don't think it favors either one of them.
Okay, so great talk on the main event. I also want to give a quick look at this. I don't have the card in front of me, but I believe it's the co-main event. It's a strawweight fight between Carla Esparza and Xiaonan. Very, very important fight at 115 pounds. You could see the next title contender come out of this fight. Carla Esparza, another reason I want to talk about this fight is just because the betting line is so close. Xiaonan, what I saw this morning at William Hill, -115, so slight favorite. Carla Esparza, -105. So actually the same question that I asked about the main event, Nick. Did this flip? Was Carla the favorite and then Jan now has surpassed her, or how did this go with the line?
No, actually Jan was -180.
Whoa, -180.
Yes. I mean, she's supposed to be kind of, the hype is around her for sure. A lot of people are thinking that she's going to be the next big thing. She's going to be the next person to possibly challenge Zhang before that, unfortunately that knockout occurred in the Rose fight. So no, she's getting a ton of respect, and she is a better striker here. Let's face it. She just has to stay off her back. I undercut the market. I opened -160 when it was -180. I thought to myself, the wrestling of Esparza is going to cause problems for obviously most women at this weight class, right? So including Jan. So I think I undercut the market, and then we had to be cautious because we did start getting sharp action on Esparza. So we moved down as, the sharp action came in because we don't want to get piled on in this situation here. And we do have more action right now on Esparza. So we're looking to get a little bit more back on Jan because the line did open too high and the whole market followed. So the market did get bet by sharps on Esparza here, believing in her wrestling. And I think it's probably correct. I think Esparza's wrestling is going to be an issue for Jan here in this spot.
All right. I definitely want to ask James about what he thinks about the last thing that Nick just said, but I have to say, it's always interesting when we're talking about these lines, and I don't consider myself a sharp, whatever, but I understand both worlds, and I am surprised because you guys know me. I bring this up occasionally from time to time. I want to look at how like previous fights potentially manipulated the line and how it could be different, just minus one little different thing. Carla Esparza is coming off of 3 very, very close decisions, and it's not split decisions where some judge was completely off, right? These were split decisions where like it really, really cut people right down the middle. Who won this fight? And so that's 3 fights in a row where if one judge just went slightly different, then we're talking about, maybe a 3-fight losing streak, or maybe she's only gone 1 and 2 in her last 3. And what would that have done to the line? Because as you're talking, as you mentioned, Nick, Xiaonan has been on a lot of wave of momentum. So I'm thinking to myself, like, if just one judge had just decided, I'll give that, then we'd be looking at potentially Xiaonan a pretty big favorite. But you're telling me that the sharps are on Carla, which is very, very interesting to me. I know that the sharps love the plus money. They love the value, but to me, I don't really see a whole lot of value here because I think you're getting value because of the way that Carla's last 3 fights have gone, and they've been so close, but they've all happened to go her way, right?
I'll tell you why, because these dummies are tired of losing money on Carla Esparza. That's why. She's an underdog in almost every one of her fights. I'm going to talk about her the same way. Who was I talking about last week? That's just like they're constantly disrespected.
Magny.
Neil Magny constantly disrespected. Carla Esparza is in that same boat. She is constantly disrespected on the lines, and she consistently puts up W's. Now, I'm not saying that they're not close fights, but we're talking about fights where she's supposed to get blown out of the water here. And these sharps are tired of losing money on her. So they're saying, hey, let's switch sides real quick, because Nick is right. The wrestling is going to give Jan issues. And I'm not saying Jan's not going to win this fight, but man, Esparza and Magny are the same fighter to me. Like, and when I'm not stylistically, I mean, they're similar, but what I'm saying is they're constantly disrespected on the lines. She has great cardio. She's extremely durable. And she always seems to find that takedown that wins the round or makes it competitive, right? And when she gets on top of you, she's a hammer. She's tough to get off. And Jan is a different beast. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But I think the reason why this line is so close is because these idiots are tired of losing money on betting on against Esparza. You know what I mean? Like that, you can only go to the well so many times before it runs dry. And I think people are finally starting to give Esparza the respect. To me, this is I don't want to say it's a coin flip fight, but it's like a minus 200 fight that could go either way, if that makes any sense at all. You know what I mean? Like I could see Esparza coming out and putting her down on the mat one time around and making it look easy. And I could see Jan coming out and just completely dominating in stand up. You know what I mean? Like I could see that happening. I could see it being a razor close fight as well. But I think Carla is consistently disrespected on the lines, man. I really do.
I completely agree with that. And your disdain for the sharps is like becoming my favorite thing about this show. Very, very quickly. Nick, what do you think about everything? So take everything that James said, but also like remember, like what were your thoughts on, because if I look at this line as a bettor, even everything that James just said, which is absolutely right. And if she was plus 160 at one point, well, then I would say, yeah, there's probably value on Carla Esparza, man. I mean, this girl's a winner. She knows how to win. She's high fight IQ. You got to give her credit almost for winning all those close split decisions, because that just shows her ability to sort of sway judges in her decision. But at minus 105, I don't see a whole lot of value in Carla Esparza. In fact, maybe I'm seeing value now on Jan. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, I missed the boat. I didn't bet this yet myself, honestly. So when you miss the boat like that, I can't get on it late. You know what I mean? It's just so the value is sucked out now, and I think the line is more appropriately set. And if anything, maybe everybody is kind of looking the wrong way. Maybe Jan will stuff those takedowns a lot better than we are anticipating here, and she will win the striking matchup. Now, let's make no mistake though, Carla Esparza's striking is getting better. I mean, that's one thing I do respect, because obviously with the wrestling base, she's been working on her striking, and it's not bad. I mean, it's definitely serviceable. She's not going to want to stand and bang here the whole time though for 3 rounds, or what I mean. There's no question she's going to want to take this fight to the floor and do what she does best. But I'm saying her striking has been elevated a little bit here in this spot. So I think she deserves the respect for sure, but the betting value is probably at the window for sure now at this spot, because I don't see the line flipping. I mean, if it continues to flip this way, then obviously Jan is going to have some value, and I might bet her. I mean, it all depends, but I think the line is appropriately set right now. And you're right. Once you miss the boat, I mean, you have to be disciplined in this betting, avenue. The betting aspect of things is very important. You cannot take a bad number when these sharps lose a lot of times, because sharps lose, let's face it, it happens every week. They're going to lose a lot of bets, when it comes to all sports, right? But they're getting great line value. So if you're taking plus 150 and you lose at plus 150, but you're laying minus 105 and lose at minus 105, that's a completely different aspect of things, right? And you're losing a lot more than you should. So I would be cautious here, and I would definitely kind of stay away from Esparza at this point, because the sharps did suck out all the value.
I mean, it's fun talking about the sort of wide discrepancies. I mean, last time, 261, we had Usman as a minus 400 against Jorge Masvidal. Those are fun to talk about as well. But when the line's minus 115, minus 105, essentially a pick 'em fight, I love these conversations. So good stuff by both of you. And now let's get to the best part of the show, best bets. James is starting to. James is going to try and start off a new winning streak. I believe in you, James. Who are we going with this week?
This is another tough card for me. Like, I feel like it seems like the line setters, Nick's doing a good job doing his job, man. Like I feel like most of them are appropriately set. But I feel like from a value standpoint, I'm going to go with Rob Font this week. I really like his value in this fight. I think his durability or defensive prowess, whatever label you want to pop on that. I like his volume. So if this fight does go to decision, I do think he's going to get the nod. You asked me that a little bit earlier. It's kind of a coin flip, but from a volume standpoint, I think that does kind of favor Font in a way. I like his volume over Cody's, and he's got that power too. So I feel like he has everything that Cody has. I feel like he's a little bit more defensively sound. He's got a great jab, and his volume's a little bit higher. So at a pick 'em price or close to it, I'm going to take the guy that has a couple advantages. I like Rob Font in this one. It's a tough pick, but I like him in this one.
Cool. Nick, what do you got for us this week?
I agree with you. I got a few plays this week, and Font is definitely one of them. So I agree with James. I like the durability aspect. I think he will find a spot and probably catch Garbrandt and put him out. So at minus 120, minus 110 at a pick 'em fight, I think he should be a little bit higher of a favorite. So I think there is some value on Font. So I'm going to lean his way as well. And a couple underdogs. I'm going to go with Paiva over Dvorak and a great flyweight scrap. I think right now Paiva is sitting, let me tell you, as we speak, plus 125 at circa. There's plus 115s, plus 120s out there as well at other places. So average line about 120, 125. I think there is some value. This is a spot where it is a coin flip type of fight. Both these guys are high level flyweights, but I do think Paiva is the better striker. He keeps his fight upright and he lands the more punishing blows along the way. And I think he's more durable. So I think at plus money on a coin flip fight, you got to go with Paiva. And then Shabazian, man, how could you not like Shabazian at plus money? I think a lot of people are banking on the fact that Brunson just kind of exposed him and he's done and he's not as good as we thought he was. Well, he's got an interesting matchup and a chance to kind of come back and show that he is a top contender here against a guy like Hermanson. So I like Shabazian at plus money. And right now his plus money price is actually decent as well. And we're getting, let me see here. For Shabazian, plus 127 or so, plus 130, 135 out there. So I think Shabazian kind of rebounds. I know it's a difficult fight, but it's a good spot for him as well. So Shabazian at plus money, Paiva at plus money, and then Font at near pick 'em price. I think those are three spots that will probably come through for you this weekend.
Great stuff, Nick. One follow-up question on your best bet. If you want to bet Shabazian, do you bet him now, or do you think the line's going to move?
I think we're going to see some Hermanson money come in, but I think we will see some sharps come back in on Shabazian. So I think it'll be a spot where it floats up a little bit and back and forth. It probably stays ballpark to where it is now. So I think either way, you don't have to rush to bet this line. I think you're going to be okay on fight day if you want to get down as well.
Beautiful, gents. Great work. Great discussion as always. Hopefully we get back in the win column this week, and then rare off week next week for Memorial's Day, and then we'll be back with jam-packed schedule in June. So win some money, enjoy the fights this weekend, and we will see you in June. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.